Welcome back. 9:44, and moments ago, the U.S. Supreme Court issued a ruling in this birthright citizenship case involving President Trump's executive order, and another one earlier in the day as well, which has to do with transgender athletes at both the collegiate and high school level.
Right. That's basically saying that states can decide on their own what they do in that realm. We are going to bring in North Central College political science professor Stephen Caliendo to kind of break this down. And let's talk first about the birthright citizenship. How close was that ruling?
It was a lot closer than we expected. And I think it was because Justice Roberts wrote the opinion for the court. We had talked about this, Anthony, earlier in the week, that they could have made a decision saying that Donald Trump can't do this on his own. You can't do this by executive order. I think John Roberts felt very strongly to go further to clarify exactly what the 14th Amendment of the Constitution says. And so because of that, I think they had a hard time getting everybody on board. So it was a 5-4 decision, essentially, on the constitutional grounds. Then there's another question because Congress passed a law in pursuant to that Constitution, and 6-3 said, no, it violates the law to have an executive order like this. So 5-4 said it violates the Constitution. 6-3 said it violates the law. Either way, birthright citizenship holds. It will be very difficult for Congress to undo it at this point.
This may be getting into the weeds too much, but what is the nature of the language in that 14th Amendment that Roberts was really kind of pushing folks to zero in on?
That if you are born, it's a soil sort of argument, if you are born in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof. And so this is the language of the 14th Amendment. It matters because Congress has, not only has the Supreme Court reinstated that or reframed that many times and underscored it, Congress has as well. And Roberts sort of goes through that in his opinion and makes it clear that there shouldn't be any question about that.
So in the future, is there any way for the Trump administration or future administrations to circumvent or come up with a concoction that does pass muster, possibly by the Supreme Court?
Natalie, that's a great question because that's oftentimes what happens. I think Roberts wrote so strongly here it would be very difficult. There's always a process of amending the U.S. Constitution. And essentially what I think Roberts is arguing here is that the only way to get around this birthright citizenship thing is to change the language of the U.S. Constitution.
Interesting. Before we move on to some of the other cases, how close this was. You mentioned 5-4.
Yeah.
6-3. What is your takeaway from that?
Well, my take is that Justice Roberts really wanted to push this. This was important that for him to get it clear that this was a constitutional right that's enshrined in our Constitution in clear language. If they would have gone another route, they could have just said, we're not going to talk about whether birthright citizenship is right or wrong. What we're saying is the President of the United States cannot write an executive order that undoes it. I think they could have got more of the conservative justices on board with that argument. He clearly wasn't satisfied with that. He wanted to make sure that everybody understood this is what this language says and this is what it means.
And at stake here were, dreamers, obviously, here in the United States, but also, I mean, work authorizations for people. I mean, and they were going to essentially lose that work authorization, people who were born here and have been working here.
Yeah, I think there would be a lot. There would be a lot that logistics would have been difficult. No, you're right. There's absolutely, and I think people tend to think about it of folks who are here without documentation. That's not this wouldn't pertain only to them. This is people who are here legally, who either are here on a long-term basis, on a short-term basis. And it was interesting, during the oral arguments, John Sauer said to the Chief Justice, "Hey, look, it's a different world than when they wrote this. You're now a plane ride away from having U.S. citizenship." And Justice Roberts very famously said, different world, same Constitution.
Wow.
Interesting. All right, let's move on to the other decision announced this morning. This had to do with a couple of states out west and their right to impose laws when it comes to transgender girls and women participating in men's sports.
Yeah, there was a case in Idaho that was a college sports case, and a case in West Virginia that was more of a K-12 case. The court said in both of those cases, they argued them together, although there were lots of different decisions, so the splits are different, but mostly on ideological grounds here, that the states may prohibit trans girls from participating in these sports. Interestingly, it was essentially a 9-0 decision in some parts of that. So again, not all along, but even the liberal justices went along with the fact that it didn't violate Title IX. Here's what's interesting. These cases were about what the states can do. They can prohibit. What we're going to probably get next term is questions about must they prohibit. Right? Those are different constitutional arguments now, because the states can make their choices at this point. But if the Constitution is read to believe that girls who are cisgender must be protected by the Constitution against having trans girls participating, that's a completely different. Now every state must do it. So those are the cases we'll see probably next.
That's the Caliendo crystal ball right there. That's probably coming down the pipeline.
There's no. Well, they're already. Well, it's not even a crystal ball because they're moving through the system. Those cases are already moving through the system. They just haven't gotten to the Supreme Court yet.
Okay. So thank you so much for your time.